Clerk will read the roll.
Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
At this time, for those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand as we are led in prayer by Minister Gloria Terry from the City of Joy. Immediately following the prayer, we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Milkovich.
Reading from God's Word, Proverbs 2, before we pray. My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding, and if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as silver and search for it as hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He holds victory in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless, for he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path, for wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. Lord, before the City Council meeting begins tonight, we want to acknowledge you and invite your presence and wisdom. May each council person first still themselves before you, a holy and righteous King, a loving God full of justice, beauty, and light. Help each council person to listen deeply to one another and respect and honor one another as if they were respecting and honoring you, for each person is made in your image. In this meeting, dear Lord, help each council person to fully value and appreciate the contributions of others, even if they may not necessarily agree with one another. Let those in this meeting not be concerned with personal agendas, but let each council person, dear Lord, work together as a governing team, making decisions and policies for the effective running of the city of Akron. May they manage well the budget and resources and effectively meet the needs of real people with no hidden agendas. May your light and love, dear Lord, enfold each person, each council person, in their wisdom and contributions, and may your Holy Spirit guide them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops, there we go.
Clerk will read the minutes from our previously held meeting.
Minutes from the June 11, 2018 meeting. Council convened in regular session at 7 p.m. with President Somerville in the chair. All members were present except for Kilby, later excused. Minutes of the previous regular meeting read and approved. Reading of petitions and communications. Passage of the consent agenda. Report of standing and special committees. Passage and referral of new ordinances and resolution. Representation from various departments and divisions. Public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Fusco. Council adjourned at 7:56 p.m. to reconvene a regular session on June 18th or special call.
Any corrections or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay.
Letters, petitions, and communications.
Petition of Nez Home Incorporated for conditional use to construct a single-family detached allotment on the northwest side of Diagonal Road, south of Copley Road, and sale of city-owned land.
File.
Petition of Danielle Allen for conditional use to establish a child daycare business center at 348 Pioneer Street.
File.
Petition of Levy Golden and Latna Slayton for conditional use to establish a child daycare business center at 545 Castle Boulevard.
File.
Petition of Sage Lewis LLC for conditional use to retain a campground tent community at 15 Broad Street.
File.
Petition of Greenleaf Apothecaries for a conditional use to establish medical marijuana dispensary at 46 South Summit Street.
File.
That one's already been filed, so we're good.
Okay. We have before us the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
We'll now move into our old agenda, rules. Councilwoman Keith.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like time.
Time will be granted. Planning, Councilman Fusco.
Time on the agenda.
Time will be granted. We'll move into our new legislation. Planning.
1 second. Okay. Item number 1, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the acquisition of land located in Auburn Township, Ohio, containing approximately 8.54 acres in the area and known as Geauga County, permanent parcel number 01709-025 from the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, approving and authorizing the execution of redevelopment agreement with 55 Furnace Street LLC or its designee, providing for the sale of property on Furnace Street for the redevelopment pursuant to the downtown area redevelopment plan, finding such property is not needed for any public use, and related findings and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 3, public service, offered by Mayor Horrigan, ordinance 2018 amending or supplementing Title IX, General Provisions, Chapter 98, Streets and Sidewalks, to enact Article 10, Management, Administration, and Control of the Use of Cities' Public Rights-of-Way in order to implement comprehensive regulations governing access to and placement of facilities and structures within the City of Akron right-of-way and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Keith.
Thank you, Madam President. This item would be referred by the committee, and also we will have a presentation next week on this particular item.
Thank you. This item will be referred.
Item number 4, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the Director of Neighborhood Assistance or his designee to enter into a contract with the Ray Bertolini Trucking Company for the demolition of various structures located within the City of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Keith.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has a favorable report. We are requesting suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This work that Bertolini, Trucking Company has done, has already been done. So that is why we are asking for suspension of rules, so that we can get up to date with our payments and everything.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky. Item number 5, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for certain improvements on State Routes 18 and 261 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement and/or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for resurfacing certain streets for certain bridge improvements and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would also like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into agreement and/or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for certain improvements on US 224 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this one to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by Mayor Horrigan, resolution expressing support for the mission of Akron Waterways Renewed to invest in Akron's environmental future by building infrastructure for the next century that will protect public health and maintain water of its highest quality in the most cost-effective manner while providing local jobs for citizens of Akron, expressing support for the proposed second amendment to the 2014 consent decree with the City of Akron as lodged by the United States with the United States District Court on June 5th, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
The committee's report is favorable, and we would request suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Madam President. As was mentioned in the committee today, and this started out with John Moore saying, it's a good day for Akron today. And it's been a continuing trudge uphill to get to this point with people that aren't even seated in here tonight that have worked diligently to find ways that we can improve what we have presented many years ago to address our overflow. And having said that, we have been very successful in many attempts to integrate new and different ways by using new tested material, newer data, and we have come up with ways that we can save on our projects. So this is another place where our engineers and all those that have been studying this situation have worked together to comply with what is being required of us, but find ways in which we can do more green and at a cost that is favorable, and we will not need to borrow as much to get this job done.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Deal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky. Item number 9, offered by Samples. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and/or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for mowing services for public property, including water distribution and pump station sites, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we are asking for suspension of the rules and passage.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. No comment? Okay.
Nothing to say, no.
So the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Deal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky. Item number 10, offered by Kamer. It's a resolution approving and confirming the appointments of Brenda Marina, John Frank, Dr. Terry Albanese as citizen representatives, and Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Charles Brown as the mayor's designee, and President Margot Somerville and Councilwoman Marilyn Keith as representatives of City Council to the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, let's go home.
Madam President, I'd like to request that council go into executive session to discuss the personnel matter that was shared today regarding the fire department.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. No. Any opposed? Roll call, clerk, please.
Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Yes. Hoke. No. Kamer. Is that a nay? Okay. Keith. Nay. Kilby. Aye. Milkovich. Aye. Neal. Aye. Amovian. Aye. Sample. Aye. Sims. Aye. Somerville.
Aye.
Swirsky. Okay, motion passes 10-3.
Okay, we'll adjourn into executive session.
Better turn mine off.
At this time, if we can have a motion to go back into our regular agenda.
A motion to come out of executive session.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Roll call, clerk.
Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Hoke. Kamer. Key. Kilby. Milkovich. Neal. Mobian. Samples. Sims. Somerville.
Aye.
Swirsky.
We will now go to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. If you wish to speak to council during this time, you can approach the podium. We're going to ask that you please sign in, state your full name, spell your last name, and give us your address. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to council business. Speakers should refrain from making any personal attacks. Anyone who breaches decorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from council chambers. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak during our public comment period?
My name is Betty Brazil, Brazil. By now I know that you know me quite well. We've been coming down since May. I still like to thank everyone that did assist me, but now there's another problem with the breaking of the foundation of my home. This week we found another addition to the breaking of the foundation of my home, and it's the front steps that's coming apart. So I won't be able to go into my front door. I have no, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And Chris did come down to check it, but he really didn't have any solution for me when they're going to fix it or how they're going to fix it or how long do I have to wait. At this point, I am just tired. I'm just tired of waiting. I'm just tired of the construction. I'm just tired of everything. Today was a new thing. I was in my backyard about 3:30 this afternoon. This gray, big old truck came down twice. And I was wondering what was he doing, just coming down back and forth. So I went into my backyard, which is, I can see my backyard from Muskill Court. There's nothing, all the houses and everything is gone. So he was dumping more debris. Well, he started dumping, it's like another dumping site. Because Kenmore, I don't know if he's with Kenmore or what, but I would like to know if that's another construction company and they just using us for a dumping site. He dumped 2 loads of gravel, dirt, everything right back of my home. So when that fills up, I'm wondering if when that fills up, since we're the must-till dumping site now, it seems like, they don't care about our homes, they don't care about our livelihood, they don't care about nothing. When that dumping site gets filled up, because that's a big area too, not as large as Kenmore, but where would they go from there? Because the next dumping site is my backyard or my kitchen. So is that what's going to happen? This is what I need answers for. I'm just tired. I'm fed up. I'm frustrated. And I know you allow us to speak our concerns, but I just wish that in this room, if 1, 2, 3 people would come down there, stay with us, spend the night with us a night, or either come down there in the daytime just to see how we are living right now. Nobody in this room would want to live like we're living now. Our houses, I feel like my house is completely taken up from under me, along with my neighbors. Now we're going to...
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you, Mrs. Brazil. And if you would like to, after the meeting, Mr. John Moore is here to talk with you after, okay?
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Joseph Rice, Jr. I'm here to speak about Circle K gas stations' restroom policy. I'm 74 years of age and been a citizen of Akron since 1954. I'm a disabled Vietnam veteran. I served 33 months in the war. I was discharged from the U.S. Army with the rank of captain. I'm a 33-year retiree of the state of Ohio. My family's roots are in the South. My father, mother, brother, and I lived the first 11 years of my life under the oppressive Jim Crow segregation laws of the South. As a child, I had no context to understand the evil and the cruelty of those for whites only signs permeating the South. I tell you this so that you may understand why I'm so offended that Circle K locks their restrooms at the stations in predominantly black neighborhoods, but not those in predominantly white neighborhoods. When Bob Dyer, the Beacon Journal, contacted the corporation, Bob Dolan, Vice President of Operations for the Great Lakes region, which includes 8 states in addition to Ohio, said the following: at Circle K, we care for the safety of all our customers and employees. In light of the well-known opioid crisis in some of the areas where we do business, and store bathrooms having clearly been identified as a key risk area for unwanted drug-related activity, it has been recommended that we lock the door as a preventive measure. While I empathize with Matt Dolan's concerns, I disagree with his conclusions. I believe, like he and too many others in this country, view drug sales and drug abuse only through the prism of race. The policy of Circle K is wrong and would fit right into the Jim Crow laws enacted by Southern legislatures against black Americans at the end of the 19th century. I often wonder, when will the people in positions of authority in America understand and believe that drugs is an American problem and is not a racial problem? This country that I served honorably in war has a tremendous demand for drugs that destroy lives, destroy families, and too often end in an early death. In the last 2 decades, 200,000 Americans have died from opioid overdoses. In conclusion, as elected leaders of this city, I believe you have a moral imperative, indeed a humane obligation, when a corporate citizen of this city openly displays such racist policies, that you at least attempt to work with that corporation to change those policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
My name is Steve Nome. It's N-O-M-E, address 1928 6th Street, Cuyahoga Falls. I'm here about the retirees insurance. I was a sanitarian with the Akron Health Department for 32.5 years. During that time, me and all sanitarians in Ohio had to obtain 18 continuing education credits annually. We went to the Ohio Environmental Health Association spring and fall conferences, which allowed us an opportunity to get those CEUs and listen to experts in public health concerns such as food safety, waste disposal, pest control, code enforcement, and various legal aspects. On several occasions, I heard legal experts discuss the reasonable man rule, which essentially stated that our actions needed to be consistent with what a reasonable person would expect. Because sometimes government can lose track when they operate of the reasonableness of things. It's appropriate to evaluate their actions. What would a reasonable person think? I think, for example, would it be appropriate for the city to punish beekeepers for not having licenses if the application form is not readily available? When I started in the housing division in 1977, housing and repair orders consistently had a 30-day compliance deadline. But when we're issuing orders in December, which includes painting the exterior of a house, was a 30-day compliance deadline reasonable? Last week I mentioned that the cost of retiree spouses insurance rose 40 times from 2017 to 2018, from $30 a month to $1,200 a month. And I noted that if the price of gas rose 40 times from this year to next year, instead of paying $2.80 a gallon, we'd be paying $112 a gallon next year. I don't think anyone here would consider that to be reasonable or acceptable. Well, it was great. When I started retirement, the insurance coverage for my wife and I was available at no cost to us. We and most retirees and their spouses understand that the city needs to charge for insurance, so we're not objecting to that. And I've been here since November, and I'll keep coming here. We want restoration of the quality health insurance we had for our spouses at a cost which is both reasonable and affordable. That's all I'm really seeking. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Noem.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Emmanuel Bay. I'm 380 Bailey Court. Our problem is we were still waiting for a resolution to come for petitioning the court to become to get services from the city. I noticed last week Councilman Fusco, Tony Trophy was here. Tony Trophy is a good friend of mine. A lot of people don't know that at the AMHA building, behind the AMHA building, there was a warehouse which was owned by Jerry Kipp. And I and my band were operating out of that warehouse. And at the time we was meeting with Tony, and we said, hey, we want to play in your club. And I went down there, and Jerry Kipps, I said, Jerry, because he wanted to sell his building. I said, well, come on down there with us, you know, maybe you could get a sale. Well, he went down there, met with Tony, and to this day, that warehouse is housing the Earthquaker guitar company that makes Earthquaker pedals. Big thing going on down there. Yeah, so what Tony did, he moved my band from there and moved us to the fire station on Maple and Market Street, historic fire station, where Chop and Swizzle was at. But from there, I said, Tony, well, my kidneys is going bad, so I couldn't take care of the rent. So I moved to Jeremiah's, and at Jeremiah's, he took care of me. And while we were there, the house did cave in from, I believe, the construction and stuff that was going on. But we still, and from Jeremiah's, when that happened, I moved to 380 Bailey Court. And we noticed we had problems, no street lights, paving is bad. And so we're trying to get this resolved so that we can get some things going on to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. And if you two, after the meeting, if you can see Mr. John Moore, okay?
Greetings. Steve Muhammad from Muhammad's Mosque 37 here in Akron, 1341 Copley Road. Wanted to say a few words about an event we've got coming up and do an official invite, and hope that you all will be able to attend. So I see we got the clock going, which I think is a good addition. And let me open by saying greetings to Madam President, members of City Council, members from the executive staff that are present, and the general population at large for the city of Akron. It's been 6 months since we have last addressed this body. I was here back in December, if you all would remember, inviting you to a community conversation, taking Akron's temperature. And we had that event, the event was successful. The event gave us some good tales, and we'll be sharing that information at the appropriate time. One of the intended efforts from the community conversation was to highlight the credible efforts already being accomplished by grassroots groups and organizations. We did that. One hope was that the event would prompt follow-up efforts. This is why I'm in front of you today. Gino Tony, some of you know him, of Dream Team Boxing, is one of Akron's key ingredients, in my opinion, for those that are working to change the culture from one of violence and senseless killings to one of discipline, confidence, and growth. On Saturday, July 7th of this year, we hope to host an event that's billed as both conflict resolution and an effort to foster peace. I have some flyers here, which I'll be giving you all at the close. The plan is to celebrate life one round at a time. Not only will you get a chance to see hard work and discipline, what it really looks like in real time, but you'll also see what success looks like when lives are transformed and young people are believed in. While Gino Tony is an example of this transformation, he was given help. Risks were taken on him. He was listened to. As a result, he will be awarding Judge Amy Jones and Akron Police Officer Alan Jones, key individuals to his life's journey. We also will be highlighting talent from around the city and the country, fighters coming in from just about everywhere, and some big names will be showing up as well. We hope that you all will be able to take some time out of your busy schedule to come and just see and support mainly what he's doing. We know that boxing is maybe seen as a barbaric sport, but for young men who are looking for guidance, direction, and support, love, belonging, family, it is an offer to a better future. We hope you can join us. I do have some flyers, and also Gino sent some tickets if you all would care for a ticket. I got enough here. I think it's 12. One for everybody.
Thank you, Reverend Muhammad. Anyone else wishing to speak during our public comment period? Seeing none, we will close our public comment period and move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Keith. 2:30. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3:15.
Planning, Councilman Fusco.
1:30.
Public Service, Councilman Keith.
3:00.
Public Utilities, Councilman Samples.
3:30.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
2:15.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal.
2:15.
Housing, Councilman Kilby.
3:30.
Health and Social Services, Councilman Amobian. Economic Development, Councilman Sims.
45.
Green Committee, Councilman Swirsky. Is there anything else coming before council? Councilwoman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to touch a little bit on Friday's Planning Commission meeting as it related to Second Chance Village. I know many of my colleagues were here as well. And what my takeaway from that Planning Commission meeting, and I commend the Commission for taking time in order for individuals to have a conversation. We have a problem in this country with homelessness. But right here in the city of Akron, we have a problem as well. One thing I learned about from Sage Lewis on Friday was his interaction with AMHA Housing and them stating that there's over 20,000 people sitting on the AMHA housing waiting list. So with this list being as long as it is, how do we help our displaced? How do we help our homeless? How do we help our houseless? Many of these individuals that are at that camp are veterans. You know, I go down there, I try to go down there at least once a week. Could the conditions be better? Yes, they could be. But I commend Sage Lewis on stepping into that space and doing something that many have yet to do, and that was to care about people. I also had the opportunity to meet with Dave Murray this past week, and Mr. Murray is just a beautiful person who had this great idea to build tiny houses. Unfortunately, he didn't get the support that I believe he needed from those who sit in elected positions. He did get a little bit of opposition from a few neighbors, but let us be clear that we are all one crisis away from being homeless, from being like these same individuals that we call those people. And I think it's about time that we do something to help them. If we've got Mr. Murray, who has been willing to spend his own money, using his own time and his talent and his treasure to help those that he doesn't even know, and he has all these people across the city willing to help him, to fund him, not wanting a dime from the city. And then we got Mr. Lewis over here who, did the best he could with trying to help people. And I just think that we're at a point where we have to come together as a city in our elected positions and with those stakeholders and those who actually give a darn about the homeless and fixing this problem. There's a report on leftfoot4.org where they say over 8 million people are living paycheck to paycheck. So then that breaks down to 35%, which is the equivalent of 8.6 million people could not pay their rent because they have no savings if they were to lose their job. Now, we really need to think about that. I mean, no one ever wants to admit that they live paycheck to paycheck, but we've all been there at some point in our life. These individuals living in this camp, they're not just living there just for the sport of it. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I want to be homeless. I want to be houseless. I want to be displaced. I want to live in a tent. That's not what they're saying. But at some point, we know there's a building that's about to be built over there. And I know there's an urgency to move this tent city. At least we know where they are. We've got tents all over the city, in the shadows, in the woods, by the railroad tracks. Had some down by what we now call the Freedom Trail. But we put homeless people out to put in a Freedom Trail. Think of the irony of that. So at some point, before it's too late, before the winter comes again, and it's freezing cold down there, let's figure it out. I think we have a moral obligation to figure this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Samples. Councilwoman Amobian?
I rise to initially talk about two things, but I think Mr. Rice, I think is your name, sir, brought something else to mind. Let me start with the two issues that I wanted to talk about. The first one has to do with individuals who have not voted for a while. And if you missed so many votes, because the U.S. Supreme Court decision talks about missing a few votes, and it talks about not responding to notices that have come to your home. I would suggest, because we have some major elections coming up real soon, if you have missed 2 elections, I would suggest that you go down to the Board of Elections to re-register. Go online, do whatever you need, but I would go down to make sure my name is still on the rolls to vote, because these elections that are coming up are major, particularly the one in November. So please, 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 instead of making voting easy, we're making it more difficult for individuals to vote. So that's one issue. The second issue is that Mr. Rice just reminded me of. As I read that article in the paper, I thought the Circle K company was embarrassed enough that they would go around and unlock those bathrooms. I didn't know they were still locked. So for that, I apologize for not being dutiful and mindful elected official. I'm not really sure what legal authority we have to change that, but I know that the citizens can rise up and change that, because I think Mr. Dyer made it very clear, particularly when you look at the opioid crisis, that it is not necessarily happening in the inner city communities. It's happening all over the United States of America, particularly in communities that have not had that problem before. So you have areas of this country, and even of Summit County, because he pointed out 3 or 4 neighborhoods where he went, where the opioid crisis and the death rate and the use of those drugs was higher than in the city of Akron, in those zip codes where the restrooms were locked, and those restrooms were unlocked. So it is truly not just a drug problem. It has more to do with, I think, with what Mr. Rice indicated, has more to do with race and being in an urban community. So that we need to address as citizens of this community. The third thing I want to address, and I know for myself, and I would imagine that all of my colleagues and other individuals around this nation, what we're witnessing at the border of our country, that we have a president who has passed a policy where children are being separated from their parents at the border, and in some cases, they don't even see their children again. I cannot believe that this is happening in the United States of America. So I'm asking all of our citizens to contact our U.S. lawmakers so that we can rise up to let the president know that this is unacceptable, this is against all of our values, and this is not America that I know, and the one that I know that these people are coming here for a brighter future, and they're experiencing another nightmare that's darker than the one that they left. So this is totally unacceptable, and we need to call all of our congresspersons in the U.S. Congress and let them know that this cannot continue to happen in the United States of America. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Mobian. Councilman Keith, did you have some comments?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Yes, we did not debate, and it is, by law, we are allowed to debate when we go into executive session. I just wanted, for the record, to, out of due respect for those who did go back, I do not feel that it was, because it's an active investigation, we are not privy to what is going on, and I just wanted to say that is why I did not get up. I do not believe it's legislative of nature for us to go into an executive discussion for what we went into, but I respect those who felt it was, but I just thought for the record that I should let you know that.
Thank you, Councilman Keith. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank Mr. Rice for coming down. I did get a chance to speak to him, and I do want to let you know, I know members from the community have reached out who called Circle K. I did have a chance to speak with their administrative assistant, Ms. Elizabeth. I was supposed to get an email on their information that went out. And I think that there are some changes that are supposed to come about from that. But I know there are others in the community that are willing to work, and we'll work with you to make sure that the changes that need to take place do. But I think that Circle K is a learning opportunity for all of us. Members of council went through training to come to understand, some of us did, what it means about implicit bias and institutional racism. And we have these discussions, but the discussions don't mean anything unless it leads to policy change. Just recently, an article that passed my mind, an implicit bias, in the newspaper about how students were listed with scholarships. Won't go into much detail, but I think on behalf of us as legislators, as we've been asked to do, it's important that we understand how the policies we put in place impact our constituents, not just through race, but as Councilwoman Samples mentioned, how it impacts class difference. These past few weeks, there's been enough that has happened within our community that lets us know, even with good intentions, when things impact people negatively, we need to take notice and try to educate ourselves on how we can prevent that from happening again. I say that because, one, for those of us that went through training, Mr. Lyons offered to work with us, to work with the community, to share what we learned. For those who want to learn about implicit bias and how it impacts the community, so they can learn and improve in their personal lives, and if they happen to be in positions of authority, so that they can prevent what happened with the Circle K incident. I want to speak to, because I know we all received an invitation, there is a summit of inclusion and diversity acceptance working together this Saturday, June 23rd at the University of Akron. It's hosted by First Grace United Church. I know they sent something out to all of us. I believe they even extended an invitation to maybe the police department to have a table. All of us can learn something to make something better, but it's especially crucial for those of us that are in position to make decisions that impact people's lives, that we are as educated as possible to address the inequities that could come about from the decisions that we make. So just want to share this for members. We've got a lot of work to do, but I mean, it's just a part of, it's a part of life. The question is, are we going to step up and, as been asked by Ms. Samples, everything's not going to be easy, but this is something, just education. Because a lot of the stuff that happens is just because folks just don't know. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Anything else coming before council? Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.